Hello everyone, I'm Abby Sharp. Welcome to Abby's Kitchen. Today I'm doing a little vlog here as I am anticipating baby being here any day now. I'm actually filming this when I'm about 33 weeks pregnant, so I still have a little bit longer to go, but you're probably watching this right before, or maybe depending if baby comes early, right when I am giving birth. I'm trying to batch shoot as much as I can so that I can allow myself just a little bit of time post-birth to enjoy the newborn life. If you can enjoy newborn life, I don't know. But anyways, I asked you guys what questions you had for me about pregnancy, fertility, this baby, my birth plan, all that fun stuff. And you had so many great questions, so I'm going to try to answer some of the big ones that came up a lot. So let's do this. Okay, first big question was, how are you going to deal with people wanting to touch and hold the baby in COVID times? Very good question, and also a hard question to answer because right now we are about 2 months out of when I'm supposed to have this baby. And a lot can happen with regards to COVID in 2 months. A lot has happened within each 2 months that has gone by since this whole thing happened in March. So it's very hard to know or anticipate what life is going to be like then. But if things were to happen today, right now as it stands, we have bubbled with our immediate family. So I would probably, of course, let our nanny and our immediate family hold the baby, plus doctors and lactation consultants and any other allied health as well. That would only make sense. But outside of that, you know, any friends that would want to visit, we can do maybe backyard visits from a distance, and any friends or family other than our immediate family that want to help, they could drop off food. So if you live in the GTA or Toronto and you want to help a new mom out, you come drop off some food for me. Give me something good to eat. So next huge question, one that I got asked many times is, do you have any insecurities around your body changing in pregnancy? And if so, how are you dealing with these insecurities? Okay, so I want to start by saying that this is not something that I would normally really kind of talk to a lot on a public forum, mainly because I just want to be cognizant that despite the fact that, of course, my body is changing and my body is getting bigger, as happens in pregnancy, normally, of course, I have no experience living in a larger body. So while, of course, all people have body insecurities and all body insecurities are valid and worthy of being acknowledged and talking about, these are normal things to be experiencing for everybody. I'm just aware and cognizant of my own body's privilege, and generally this would inform who I would speak to about these kinds of issues. So having said all of that, if me talking about my body changing in pregnancy is triggering or offensive to you, please by all means do skip ahead. So first of all, I think a lot of people think that body positivity means, you know, like looking yourself in the mirror every single day and thinking that you are just like rocking it. But to me, body positivity means respecting your body. It doesn't necessarily mean that you'll always be confident or comfortable with, you know, despite what happens to your body. So weight gain is a normal, healthy, expected part of pregnancy, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily easy to watch your body change so rapidly or kind of not even recognize some features of your body when you look at yourself in the mirror. Like, I physically cannot do a lot of things while I'm pregnant that I very easily could do when I'm not. So like bending over to pick something up that my son dropped is really hard on my core and my knees right now. My knees are just killing me. And you know, even just like shaving my legs or other things down there, I can't do it anymore because I literally cannot see them. So in my first pregnancy with my son a couple of years ago, I really didn't gain that much weight. And I remember, you know, even that was a bit stressful for me because I'd get on the scale every week, and maybe the weeks that I didn't gain any weight, I'd be worried that something was wrong. Or when somebody would make a comment that I was so small, it would actually upset me. But of course, the comments about me being too small were not nearly as uncomfortable as the comments of me being huge or looking so big. And that's because our society has a very obvious hierarchy when it comes to body size and body shape. But let's be real, any body comments are rude and just so uncomfortable and cringeworthy. And unfortunately, it's become way too normalized in our society to make comments about pregnant body. So just heads up to everybody, doesn't mean if you are coming at it from a good place, please just avoid making comments about pregnant people's bodies. Too big, too small, it doesn't matter. I just think that it's not very kind. Then with this pregnancy, I had this expectation that I wasn't going to gain a lot of weight because that's what happened with my last pregnancy. And when you're a second time mom, you just kind of base everything off your first experience. But I gained weight a lot faster this time. And I knew that this was normal and healthy, even if it didn't feel normal to me based on my last experience. But then people started to comment and tell me, oh my gosh, you look so much bigger than you did last time, as if that was like a really great thing to say to somebody. And of course, that made me worry that something was wrong. And it turns out something actually was wrong in that situation. My thyroid was low, and correcting that actually did slow down the weight gain a little bit. But still, even at the time of me filming this, I'm 2 months out of giving birth, like 33 weeks now. And I have gained more than I did my entire first pregnancy. And I'm actually okay with that. Honestly, most days I really don't even think about it because I just know my body is doing what it has to do, and every pregnancy is so unique and different. But on other days when I'm already stressed about something, or somebody makes a mean comment online or calls me out for being huge or whatever, and my resiliency is already kind of down, I of course have insecure concerns like, is this the right weight gain amount for me? And the fact that I even have to think about these things while living in a socially accepted body shape and size just points to and speaks to how deeply ingrained fat phobia is and how problematic this pervasive concept of bouncing back really is in our society. But yeah, like when a nurse weighs you and then makes them off the cuff comment about the weight gain coming on fast, you're probably going to worry. This is a medical professional making a comment, even if you inherently trust your body to lead the way. There's going to be that like little voice in the back of your head being like, is something wrong here? Should I be concerned? So yeah, side note, FYI for everybody who's watching, pregnancy weight gain is not linear or perfect. It does not have to be the perfect 1 to 1.5 pounds per week that your app tells you you should be gaining. Every body and every pregnancy is different and unique. And that's something that I even had to remind myself of during this process when obviously my weight gain was not linear. So yeah, sometimes I think that those apps kind of freak moms out. So believe me, I have a ton of empathy for those of you who want to change your body, whether it's in pregnancy or, after pregnancy or has nothing to do with pregnancy. I think it's almost impossible not to want to change your body in a society that really hates fatness, even if you're not fat. But while we can't necessarily change the world and society's view on body shape and body size, we can change how we respond to it. The first thing we can do is to acknowledge these thoughts and also to acknowledge how deep-seated fat phobia really is in basically all of us. And the other is to not let these thoughts interfere with how we treat our body. I may worry about what other people may think about me as a dietitian and bouncing back fast enough, but the reality is this is not going to change how I nourish my body, both for pregnancy, to grow a baby, to heal from a birth and pregnancy, and to feed a baby through breastfeeding. And speaking of breastfeeding, it really irks me and bothers me when people just make the statement, oh, don't even worry about gaining weight or all the fat that you've gained. It's all just gonna melt away once you have that baby and you start breastfeeding. When actually, this is only the experience of about half of women, where a lot of us, myself included, need the extra fat and weight on our body to feed baby. So I actually gain weight while breastfeeding, and actually a lot of people do. So even though, of course, body changes in pregnancy are uncomfortable, and I feel like I have some added pressure on me being a dietitian and working in the media and being in the public eye, and I have a lot of trolls, and those trolls are vicious and are not sensitive to the fact that I'm growing a human right now. But I will say that my priority is and always has been and will continue to be growing and feeding a healthy baby. That is my priority, and that is what kind of helps to get me through some of those insecure moments. Okay, next question is, what does maternity leave look like for you as a YouTuber? Very good question. I'm not sure. I didn't really take that much time off with my first. I actually remember being at the hospital and answering emails and negotiating contract, like in between contractions, like kind of rocking back and forth, like breathing and trying to write an email. It took me a little longer than normal. And also it did my first TV segment 2 weeks postpartum because it was a Mother's Day segment, and they really wanted me on because I was a new mom and my son was in the green room waiting for me, watching me on the big screen. So that was my first mat leave. This time I did tell my agent that I would like at least 3 or 4 weeks minimum before I do any kind of live TV or live appearances, or even have to do a shoot day. So I'll take a few weeks off of shooting in my studio. And also just like recipe testing too. Like I'd like to not be having to do any of these more strenuous long days that I normally do in the studio. But other than that, you know, I'll be answering emails and writing content and editing content, doing all the behind the scenes work so that when I do feel like I got a little bit more sleep in me and a little bit more resilience, that I can get back into the studio and bang some more good stuff out. We have been working our asses off here behind the scenes to kind of bank some content so that I don't feel like we get behind. I don't know, I'm a real stickler for my schedule, and I know you guys think that it's unnecessary and I'm welcome to take time off, etc. But I don't know, I just like to have my schedule and try to stick to it as best as I can. So I'm gonna try my best for that. Now, of course, not knowing what life is gonna be like with a toddler and a newborn, I would love to have some other ideas on really more simple vlog style content that I can produce so that if I'm just exhausted or I just don't have the bandwidth or the time to do as many what I eat in a day reviews and things like that, because those take me like a week just to do the research for. So if you have any other ideas, please leave me a comment below. I want to keep giving you great content. I want to make sure that it's evidence-based and awesome. But of course, I also have no idea what my life is going to be like very soon. Okay, next question is, any newborn essentials that you're definitely going to be using this time around? Yeah, actually, that's a really good question. I've almost like blocked out that whole time in my life. So I need to kind of revisit what I have. Actually, I haven't even like gone and organized everything yet. But a few things off the top of my head. One, a good breast pump. So I exclusively pumped for a year with my son. So I had a lot of different breast pumps that I tried. I have a ton of them. And my favorite that I own is the Medela Sonata. Medela Sonata? I don't know how you say that. Medela Sonata. This one I found way more comfortable, and I got way better output than my Spectra, which everyone raves about the Spectra, but I found the Spectra A, super duper loud, and B, I just found that it was like really aggressive. Like it really ruined my nipples. I got mastitis every single time I used it. But my Sonata, no problems. It was super quiet, very powerful, great output. So if you want to invest in a really amazing pump, the Sonata is amazing. But this time I got the Willow Pump as another backup, which is kind of cool because it goes like right into your bra. It's completely wireless, cordless. So this I'm hoping will make it easier for me to pump on the go, because I used to have to like pump in the car and like pump when I went for brunch, and I did it. It was just so awkward to have to do all the time, and I hated doing it. So I think if I could be a little bit more discreet, that will be amazing, and it'll make my pumping journey a little easier on me. Other things that I loved was the Merlin Magic Suit. This was so great. We put my son in this as soon as he was big enough to fit into it. But it basically is like a full body swaddle that's safe. So when you swaddle like a newborn, of course, their hands are kind of tucked under, but the only time I ever swaddled my son like that, he decided to roll over and it was traumatizing and he screamed and I thought he was going to die. Anyways, it was a horrible experience. So I didn't want that. The Merlin suit is arms and legs that are hugged them nice and tightly, so they feel like they're kind of swaddled and tight and cozy and hugged, but they sleep so much better than without it. So that was so key. Another really important essential was the Dr. Newman's nipple ointment. This was so key if you were pumping or breastfeeding, and of course you're going to get sore nipples, it's inevitable, but this was the only nipple cream that actually helped. And you can ask your doctor to add some ibuprofen to the formula if you go to a compounding pharmacist, and this will also add some kind of pain relief as well if you're struggling with pain, which you probably are. And what else? Oh, and the bouncer. We have the baby Bjorn bouncer, which is amazing. There's so many different swings and like, electronic rockers and things. My kid hated all of those expensive items. The bouncer was the best one that we ever tried. And so I'm hoping that this new child likes it as well. But it's great to just like strap them into the bouncer, give them a toy, and you can do something else, whether it's making dinner or pumping or just answering the door or whatever. And you don't always have to have them in your hands. So we love the baby Bjorn. I actually have a whole blog post about newborn essentials and then also essentials from the months 6 to 12. So I'm gonna leave a link to that in the description below. So definitely check that out. Next question, of course, another big one. What is your birth plan and how is COVID affecting this? Very good question. I mean, you know me, I'm a planner. I like to plan. And I actually started this pregnancy out with an OB. And I had an OB with my son, but we also had a doula. And that doula helped enormously with birth support. I couldn't imagine, after the fact I said that was the best decision we made in the whole thing, was having that doula. But then of course COVID happened and we were told that we can only have one support partner in the hospital. So I felt like, of course, I wanted to bring my husband, and that meant no doula. So we switched to a midwife because this way, at least, I felt like, at least if my doula can't be there by August and I have no idea what's going to happen by then, that at least I'll have some birth support, a little bit more so with the midwife than I would with an OB, because the OB really only kind of comes in when it's time to catch the baby. The other thing is that I really hated staying over in the hospital. It was the worst part of the whole birthing experience, was having to stay over in the hospital in a shared room with another family and another crying baby. And it was just, it still gives me a bit of anxiety and nightmares. And at least with a midwife, I could go home pretty much immediately after birth, assuming that all things go well, and they can check on me at home. And especially with COVID, I really just want to get the hell out of that hospital as fast as I humanly possibly can. So my birth plan is to go into labor naturally, hopefully, because I was induced last time and I really want to avoid another induction. That was another reason why I want to switch to the midwife, is because the OB wants to induce all IVF patients, and I just don't see the reason for that. So there's no evidence to support that recommendation at all, even though that's the kind of like standard protocol. So my midwife doesn't think that's necessary. So I'm hoping to go into labor naturally, and then I'll probably just labor at home as long as I possibly can manage, and then head off to the hospital and meet my midwife there. And depending on how things are looking in August when I give birth, maybe my doula can come as well. Please, I'm really trying to be hopeful. And of course, I'll go as long as I possibly can pain-wise. I had to be induced last time, so if I need another induction and it becomes so intense that I need an epidural, I'll get an epidural. I don't need to be a hero. I got an epidural last time and it was great. So the only thing that makes me consider kind of getting the epidural sooner than later, like you don't want to wait so long and then it'd be too late for you to get the epidural, was that last time I had two inductions. The first one failed, and then they did another one. And so I'd already gone 8 hours with intense contractions because I was on Pitocin, and my contractions were like on top of each other. And the nurse was like, oh, that's usually a sign that it's time to push. You're probably ready to go. And I was like, great. After 8 hours of that, I was like, great. I can't believe I made it. I can't believe I did it. And then they checked me and I was 4 centimeters dilated. And obviously you got to get to 10. And I was like, no way in hell. I need the epidural now. I can't go another 6 centimeters like this. And it ended up being another 12 hours on top of that. So it was a 20-hour labor. Plus I had a retained placenta. And if you don't know what that means, it basically meant that the doctor had to put his whole arm up into me, literally, while the doctor and the resident were like punching on my stomach trying to get the placenta to dislodge, and that caused me to hemorrhage. So there were a lot of things that happened that makes me kind of grateful that I had pain relief on board. So yeah, honestly, I'm just going to play this one by ear. I don't have any hard and fast rules when it comes to whether or not I'm getting the epidural or when I'm getting the epidural. I'm just going to hope that I don't need to be induced, that it's a relatively fast labor, and that I don't have a retained placenta or hemorrhage this time. Wish me luck. Okay, next question. Any recommendations for moms who want to have a full-time career? Yes. Delegate, delegate, delegate. I mean, you cannot do it all. You really have to get as much help as you possibly can and just relinquish some control. It's impossible to do it all. I think that mothers and fathers who choose to work have to really consider 2 major things. First is the professional and just emotional fulfillment of their career. And second is the financial aspect of it. I personally love what I do, and I would not feel fulfilled in my life if I did not have my career. Now, other mothers or fathers may not feel this way about their jobs, or the idea of motherhood or parenthood or fatherhood may be so strong that it totally overshadows that job, and that is amazing too. I also recognize that delegating some of the work in my business to my assistant or to freelancers, and some of the childcare to our nanny or to, leaning on family and things like that, made more financial sense to my business than just stepping back and not working at all. Now, I recognize that I am very, very privileged to be able to make those choices, because there are so many women and men out there who may want to work, but can't because it doesn't make financial sense, or maybe they want to stay home with their children and they can't because it does not make financial sense. So again, I am so lucky to have the privilege to be able to make those choices for myself. But again, bottom line, I think relinquishing some control is key. Okay, next question. How would your life be different if you had your kids 10 years ago? Probably very different. 10 years ago, I was 22 years old. I was in school and also probably just not in the best emotional place in my life. I was struggling really hard with my anxiety and also remnants of my orthorexia. And my priority and my goal was to just succeed at school and get into a good internship at any cost. I'm not really sure that I would have been able to deal so well with the changes, the body changes, the relationship changes, the responsibility changes that comes with motherhood. I was also just starting the Abby's Kitchen blog, and I think if I had had my family back then, I probably would not have had the momentum and the bandwidth to really build it into what it is today. So I'm not even sure that this channel would even be a thing if I had my kids 10 years ago. Okay, next question. How does being a dietitian impact how you feed your kids? Great question. I think there's this thought that being a dietitian means that I am obsessed with ensuring that every single meal that my child eats is perfectly balanced and super nutritious and organic and free of any sugar or gluten or whatever. But honestly, that's not how I roll. If anything, being a dietitian has made me a bit more relaxed about feeding my son. And I always say that I am way more concerned with the long-term game of raising a competent, intuitive eater than I am concerned about how much vitamin A my kid gets in a single given day. So I follow a feeding theory called the division of responsibility, which was developed by Ellen Satter, who is really like the child and toddler and teen feeding guru. But basically what it entails is that as a parent, I am responsible for what food is served, when the food is served, where the food is served, and my son or the child is responsible for what he eats and if he eats at all. So I will do a whole video on this if that's something that you're interested in. But basically, I don't pressure or bribe my son to eat anything. You know, I really want him to learn how to listen to his hunger and fullness cues. And I want to make the mealtime a pleasant experience so that meals don't become like a battleground and there's a neutrality around food. Like nothing is good and nothing is bad. So I serve a wide variety of foods in balanced meals that I would eat myself. And I always try to kind of switch things up so that he's seeing a variety of fruits and a variety of vegetables and grains and fats and proteins, etc. I want to make sure that he's getting exposed to a wide variety of foods. So we're not always seeing the same like 5 foods on rotation that I know, of course, that he likes. Now, the key is that I always want to make sure that there is at least one safe food or like a fallback food on the table at all times, that when all else fails, if he doesn't like the vegetable I'm serving and if he doesn't like the protein I'm serving or the spice mix that I put it in or whatever, he at least can eat that food. So that might be bread for a lot of kids. That might be rice for a lot of kids. Maybe it's a fruit or a vegetable or a piece of chicken or whatever. I mean, all kids are going to have their preferences. And I also serve fun foods as well. And sometimes I serve unlimited amounts of fun foods. Basically, I let the kid eat ad libitum at certain snacks so that it takes the novelty factor away from those sweets or those foods. But of course, we don't want to necessarily serve unlimited sweets at the same time as dinner because it may kind of take away from or crowd out other nutritious foods in the diet. So these are all components of the division of responsibility that I'll really need to go into more detail on. But the reality is I also don't let my son completely dictate what he gets served. If he throws a tantrum at the dinner table because, you know, he wants only a banana, for example, and that day, you know, I've made sure that there's a safe or fallback food on the table, I don't give him a banana. I would calmly say to him, oh, you know, tonight we're having bread. I know you like bread, and we're having chicken, and we're having peas, and we're having broccoli, but maybe tomorrow we'll have a banana. But if the banana is on the table and that is one of the foods that I've chosen to serve to him, then I don't withhold the banana to get him to eat a piece of broccoli instead. There has to be no pressure. There has to be a moral neutrality around these foods. Again, the division responsibility would say that I, as the parent, choose what is served and he decides what, or if anything, he's going to eat. There's a lot to unpack here, so of course I'm going to have to go into a lot more detail in a full video, but I will tell you that this method absolutely does work. My son does not eat perfectly, but that is not my goal anyways. He has a really balanced diet over time and he eats intuitively, and to me, that is winning. So some days he will go for the broccoli first on the plate, and other days he will go for the safe food like the bread or the rice. And the other day, I even offered him a slice of really amazing key lime pie, and it was so, so delicious. And he was full, so what did he do? He took 2 bites and he said, Mommy, I'm done, and he handed me the bowl. That, my friends, is pretty good evidence that the division of responsibility, even though it sounds crazy to a lot of parents, really does work. So success in feeding to me is not that my son never eats fast food or never eats sugar or never wants to eat sugar. Success to me is that he is able to listen to his body and he doesn't put certain foods in a hierarchy, like a moral hierarchy of this one's yucky, this one's yummy, this is good, this is bad. Anyways, like I said, if you want a whole video on this, let me know in the comments below. And also, I have a really amazing feeding group on Facebook that I run called the Millennial Moms Guide to Mindful Meal Planning. So if you want to join that, I'll leave a link to that in the description as well. Next question. Do you struggle with work-life balance? So much. I mean, it's probably my biggest source of anxiety and guilt because I really do not know how to successfully be a mother and run a very big business and busy business without feeling an enormous amount of mom guilt. I actually wrote a whole post about this in my last pregnancy because I was feeling it back then. And now I feel like my business is even busier and bigger, and I honestly feel like I'm just treading water. I really do feel like I'm failing at everything at times because I can't do everything to my very high standards. And that is my fault. I am actively trying to lower my standards, but it doesn't really come naturally to me because, you know, type A personality right here. My husband is a lot better at this, and I think a lot of men are because I just think that they don't put as much pressure on themselves. like, for example, he'd be happy to order Uber Eats, you know, every night of the week just to take that pressure off the family. But for me, I feel like I take a lot of pride in certain aspects of my work and motherhood that I feel like I am good at, like food. So it's a little bit harder for me to let those things go. But I also know that ultimately I put all this pressure on myself because ultimately I am probably my worst critic. But yeah, I basically always just feel like I'm not doing enough or not doing it good enough. Okay, next question. Any food tips for pregnant or new moms? Yes, batch prep. If you are pregnant right now and you are making anything just for regular dinner, make a huge batch of it and freeze some of it for later, for when the baby is born. I'm telling you, when we had our first kid, I think I lasted like 2 full months on batch prepped meals, which was amazing. And that really did get me through. Also, if you are a new mom, accept any food that anyone is willing to make for you or buy for you or send to you. Do not worry that it's not as healthy or perfect or organic or balanced than what you would normally make for yourself. Just feed yourself or have somebody else feed you, period. Also, having snacks on hand postpartum is so key. You're gonna be so busy, you're not gonna be able to make meals or even eat meals. So just having things that you can quickly pop in your mouth is amazing. So if you wanna do some batch prepping while you're pregnant, some really kind of simple muffin recipes, energy balls, lactation cookies, smoothie packs, those kind of things are going to save your life. And also, any kind of packaged snacks that you like and enjoy, make sure that you are stocked up on them. Because I think I lived off like Kind bars and like pistachios for those late night feeds, or just those days when I was just so exhausted where I couldn't really do anything else. Like I couldn't really prepare any kind of meal for myself. There wasn't even time to actually eat the meal, never mind prepare it. So yeah, batch prep and snack it up. Okay, did you always know that you wanted to be a mom? I did actually. My mother is an amazing mom and also is an entrepreneur, so I knew that I actually wanted to have both. She, when I was growing up, ran a Montessori school. She was a principal, she was a teacher, and she was invested in the Montessori method. So I did a lot of the after school programs and the after school care and babysitting and things like that. So I really grew up so fascinated by children and fascinated by their development. So I definitely knew always that I wanted to be a mom. But still, motherhood is actually really, really hard for me. It's really challenging for everyone, but I don't know, it doesn't necessarily come naturally to me. And it's way harder for me than my work, my day job, that's for sure. Way more work than my day job. But still, yes, there was never a doubt in my mind that I wanted to be a mom. Okay, how am I feeling physically in this pregnancy compared to with baby E? Oh, brutal. Baby E's pregnancy was so easy in comparison. Honestly, I was like modestly sick, but really not that bad just in the first trimester. I never had any pains, no back pain at all. I was literally doing spinning classes until like the week I gave birth. Legit. This time, well, I'm almost 3 years older, so there's that. And I also went through a lot more to get pregnant this time, so I feel like I was already like battered and bruised by the time I got here. But I will say I was more sick in the first trimester this time. Not like hospitalized grade, certainly. I mean, a lot of my friends have it way worse, but more so than with baby E. Also, way more tired, like dizzying tired by 3 p.m. And it's still exhausting. I mean, that wasn't just like a first or second trimester thing. It was like, I'm just wiped all the time. And this baby is way more active. Like I'm talking full on somersaults, like Cirque du Soleil style, all day, all night, to the point that sometimes I have to walk on the treadmill at like 1 a.m. just to get this baby to cool down and fall asleep, just to give me like a minute to breathe. Also, baby E was a winter pregnancy. Summer pregnancies suck. Oh, honestly, I can only go outside for like 30 minutes because I have to wear compression socks all day, every single day. Otherwise, my feet are like just throbbing by the end of the day. And when I went for a walk, 30 minutes, just 30 minutes, early in the morning, 8 a.m., just to avoid the heat with Poppy the other day. And my hand blew up so big, they're getting so hot and big that I involuntarily dropped her leash because I couldn't bend my fingers So I'm finding that even by like 3 p.m. every single day now, my fingers are so swollen that I'm having a hard time just typing and doing my job. So I'm like holding on to ice packs now just to go out for a walk for 30 minutes with the dog. It's uncomfortable. But all complaints aside, I am so grateful that this IVF cycle worked, because my goodness, to be stuck in IVF limbo during COVID times is excruciating. I have so much empathy for all of my infertility warriors out there, especially, I mean, it's terrible on a good day, but during these COVID times where you're also dealing with the stress of that and having to wait for cycles to be, started back up and cycles being canceled, I can only imagine. So, all of you are so strong. So don't ever hesitate to reach out if you need someone to talk to and you need a little bit of support, because I think what you guys must be going through must be absolute hell. Okay, next question. Are you worried about breastfeeding this time around? Guys, I'm so stressed about this already. I was stressed about this as soon as I stopped breastfeeding and pumping with my son. The first thought I had was, I'm just counting down the days to when I have to do this again. But yes, I had a really rough time breastfeeding my son, and I talked about it in my video here. But he basically had what the dentist called the worst lip and tongue tie that she had ever released. So that was great. And then on top of that, I had supply issues. I had to pump every hour on the hour for months, take domperidone to get my supply up, which caused massive anxiety issues. Plus my son had colic, which was not fun. And I had mastitis like 5 times. So yeah, it was a really rough go. And I had to give up breastfeeding because it just was too emotionally exhausting for me to even try when it just wasn't working. So I exclusively pumped for over a year. And I remember when I got home from the hospital, after a very frustrating night trying to breastfeed my son in the hospital, which obviously wasn't working. And I told the lactation consultant came over like the next day that I came home. And I told her that the first night, we had to give my son a bit of formula because I just didn't have any milk. And she audibly gasped and said, "Oh no." Now imagine being already sleep deprived and so frustrated, just trying your absolute damn best. And that was the response that I got. Honestly, the culture of breastfeeding shaming is so intense and aggressive. Not all people want to or can breastfeed, and that is totally okay. Like, what I've come to realize is that fed is absolutely best. Do I want to have a breastfeeding relationship this time? Yes, so badly. Do I hate that stupid pump with every bone in my body? Yes, so much. But I will say that, by the end of the year, I did feel like so accomplished, so proud of myself that I had frozen. I'd gone from being an undersupplier and really killing myself to get that milk into my son, to being an oversupplier with freezing over 100 liters of excess breast milk that brought my son into the 2nd year of life. And that's basically what he consumed for several months in his 2nd year. So it all felt pretty rewarding, even though it literally killed me to make it. But I would probably do the IVF experience over 1 million times before dealing with all of the roadblocks and struggles that I experienced in breastfeeding again. So I'm just really hoping that things run more smoothly this time. Please pray for me. Okay, has your diet changed in pregnancy? Not really. Honestly, I haven't had any aversions or really any cravings this pregnancy. My last pregnancy, I didn't really have any cravings, but I definitely had aversions to fish and chicken, and eggs, basically. A lot of proteins. I couldn't eat them at all the whole pregnancy. It took months after giving birth for me even to want a chicken breast again. But I really haven't dealt with any of those things, so that hasn't really changed. I probably eat 1 more snack a day than I normally would, but it's not something that I'm tracking. I'm just listening to my body, and if I'm more hungry, I eat a little bit more, and that's basically what I do. So it's certainly not something that I'm very cognizant of. I don't eat any raw fish while I'm pregnant. I also don't crave it, so that helps. And I also don't drink alcohol, other than maybe a sip of my husband's wine on the occasional weekend. But other than that, yeah, I'm just trying not to stress too much over things, because I feel like COVID has been enough of a stressor in these times. Okay, next question. How did giving birth feel, and did it hurt? Okay, so great question, and trigger warning that this might get graphic and gross for some of you, so feel free to skip ahead if that's triggering or weird for you. But yeah, I was induced, so my labor was pretty intense. I think I mentioned before, I did 8 hours of like really intense contractions. Like there'd be like 3 contractions on top of each other before I'd even get like even a few seconds of relief. And they thought that that meant that it was time to push, of course, but it actually only meant that I was 4 centimeters dilated and I was dying. So I got the epidural at that point, and I was grateful that I did, because it was like another 12 hours on top of that. So at that point I got a little bit of rest, and I really needed that rest because I had an induction the night before that failed. And that induction had me having like really intense labor pains in the night, which kept me up. So I didn't sleep. And then eventually I passed out. And when I woke up, it was like, oh, it stopped. Oh, it stopped. It means I have to go in again and have a new induction started. So that really sucked. But how did it feel? It's hard to describe, but I think it feels kind of like period cramps times like 100 or 1,000. I don't really know. I haven't done the math exactly, so I don't know scientifically how many more times painful it is compared to a normal period cramp. But like period cramps, kind of like your insides are being twisted. And also it's exhausting. Like I remember going through, like with my doula, going through like exercises, breathing exercises to try to get through each contraction. And like my legs would be shaking by the end. And I was in really good shape then. I was spinning like every day. So I was physically exhausted and drained by the kind of marathon that is labor. And I really don't know what pushing, like the sensation of what they call the ring of fire, feels like, because I had an epidural at that point. And I also don't know what tearing feels like because I didn't tear. What I do want moms to do and to know is to not be afraid. I actually cannot wait for labor again. It was so exciting. You know, even the pain of it, those kind of memories almost fade away, because the pushing part, like that hour of pushing, was the most exciting, exhilarating hour of my life. It was literally like having a room full of supportive people cheering you on, telling you you're amazing, telling you how strong you are and how awesome that push was. Like it was so, so exciting. And even though I had a bit of a like traumatic post-birth experience where I had the postpartum hemorrhage and I had the retained placenta and the pushing and the beating on my belly, thinking about those things is a little bit scary. But the pushing experience and just the adrenaline rush and holding the baby in your arms afterwards, it was so, so amazing. And as soon as it happened, as soon as the baby came out, I turned to my husband, I said, can we do that again? Because it was just so cool. The whole experience was just so cool. So yeah, don't be afraid. The experience is just so incredibly fun. Okay, next question. What will my postpartum diet look like? Honestly, probably like whatever I feel like, and also probably a lot of it. I was super hungry last time when I was breastfeeding, and I expect things will be the same this time. But yeah, probably a lot of soups. I've already frozen like 15 bags of homemade soup in the freezer, so I'll probably be having a lot of that, because I know last time I was craving a lot of, hydration and water, so that was really key. Also, I ate a lot of watermelon, so this time at least watermelon will be more in season, so I'll probably have a lot of that. And then lots of snacks, right? Like tons of nuts and bars. I love Kind bars. I always had those. I love dips, so hummus and guacamole, higher calorie snacks like that are really easy to reach for and grab. And also yogurt. I mean, I love yogurt and Greek yogurt, even when I'm not breastfeeding and nursing. So probably a lot of yogurt, because I also know that my protein and my calcium needs are going to be extra high while nursing. So those are the kind of things that I'm probably going to be eating a lot of, things that are really super easy to grab and just shove in my face really quickly, because I'm probably not going to have a whole lot of time for super fancy meals. Have you been exercising during your pregnancy? Yes, actually. And I think there's a huge misconception that you can't exercise. And I actually addressed this in my pregnancy myth video. But honestly, not a whole lot has changed my exercise regime. I'm not doing HIIT workouts, obviously, and I never really was. I haven't for a long time at least, because A, I don't enjoy them, and B, you know, even before I was pregnant, it just wasn't really great for my fertility. But I walk daily, either inside on the treadmill on an incline or outside with my husband and my kid. So I try to enjoy the outdoors while I can, and it's not too hot and my hands aren't blowing up. But I'm also doing like a combination of strength training, like weightlifting, and like bar workouts, sometimes with my virtual trainer, and sometimes I do a lot of like YouTube videos. So I love Sydney Cummings videos. If you are not familiar with her YouTube workouts, they're amazing. So definitely check that out. But of course, I'm always interested in hearing some other great YouTubers that you love to follow along with their workouts. So leave me some comments and ideas below. But yeah, I don't do a lot of ab stuff. Definitely not like any like twisting moves. I have diastasis recti from my first pregnancy and a little bit of prolapse. So I definitely don't want to make that any worse in this pregnancy if I can avoid it. And I don't do any workout moves that really get me out of breath. So definitely less compound moves, more kind of static arms, a lot of booty band moves, things like that, a lot of back exercises, because honestly, pregnancy and breastfeeding both kind of get you to like slump over, which is not a great look, not great for my posture. But yeah, I just feel best when I'm exercising. It definitely helps with energy levels, and it definitely helps with sleep and digestion. So I do try to keep active in pregnancy. Okay, last question. How is Big Boy E feeling about the baby and being a big brother? So he's so cute. He's so affectionate. He will come up to me and like hug my belly and say mama's baby and give it a kiss and stroke it very gently. He knows to be very gentle. He's actually going to be a really great big brother because, you know, as far as boys go, he's very affectionate. I know everyone complains, oh, boys are so wild. Not my boy. My boy is very loving. He loves to cuddle. He loves his teddies and his baby doll that we've been practicing on. I expect that he may be a little bit jealous in an attention grabbing kind of way, because in all honesty, he has been a little spoiled in COVID times because mommy and daddy have been around a lot more. So he's had a lot more of us to spend time with us more often. And also he's into this like game where he calls mommy, 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 until you kind of acknowledge him. Same with daddy. Doesn't matter. Whoever is around, he will just call on repeat. And so I expect that might get worse, but we'll see. But one little quick tip that my mom gave me, because I think I mentioned that my mother was a Montessori teacher, so she's been dealing with young children her whole life. And she told me a trick that she used, that they would use in the school, where they would teach the children to put their hand on the adult's shoulder when they want their attention. And when the adult was ready for them, they would, you know, turn to them and nod to them and say, yes, so-and-so. And that's how they were being taught patience. And so we're trying that with my son. He's still a little bit young to totally embrace it, but I think he's going to get it before the baby comes. So I'm hoping that we're going to build up some of those patience skills before baby number 2 comes. But honestly, I'm not worried. I'm not worried about him hurting the baby. I'm not worried about him getting, you know, throwing too many tantrums. He's just very affectionate and gentle in his nature. So I know he's going to be an amazing big brother. Well, folks, I'm going to go enjoy the outside. You can see the sun is just like beaming on me, and it's getting really hot in here. Not the most flattering light, that's for sure. But I'm gonna go enjoy the day. And on that note, if you like this video, don't forget to give it the thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the little bell so you never miss a video. Also, leave me comments below if you have any questions about pregnancy, postpartum, breastfeeding. I'm definitely going to be talking a lot more about breastfeeding after this baby comes, so be prepared for that. And I will see you next time on Abby's Kitchen. Bye.